day, and this is session 3, KDVA workshops. So the intent of the workshops is to bring organizations that have a mutual desire to help the ROK-U.S. Alliance as well as our veterans. Specifically, it is to help you personally so that you understand that there are resources out there that want to help you. And also, we want the resources to arm you better so that when you go back into your communities and your own circles of influence, you're better prepared to help carry out KDVA's mission. So we heard the wonderful personal stories. I tell you, just literally you can't match it. Now we're doing organizations that are really supportive of the Alliance and veterans. And no better way to kick it off than with the Combined Forces Command in Korea and Colonel Richard Butler. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Colonel Butler.
Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sir, it's good to see you as always. One of my best bosses and personal mentor. Thank you. Going after lunch is always tough, and I did have lunch, so if you hear me snoring up here. The first thing I want to say is this is my first time at a lectern since COVID started. So we should all be out seeing each other without masks. Also, for the morning session, you know, I'm old enough now that the perspective of what it means to be a veteran is a very different thing from when I started, and you sharing your stories of when you were young really brings me back. And my ties to Korea start with a grandfather who was recalled after World War II to go to Korea. He died young, and I didn't get a chance to know him really well, but it still sort of resonates in a big way. And also, my good neighbor across the street was a veteran of Korea in '52, and he's in failing health, unfortunately. But my mom spent the last 2 months with me in Seoul with my family, and she and him were trading stories. He also mentioned that the only thing that looks the same is the train station, and it's really helping him, you know, go through his last days, which, you know, also brought a tear to my mom's eyes as well. So, listen, this all matters, and that's sort of I think the lesson I'm taking away from it. And what I'm going to do is try not to turn this into an academic representation of what we do in Korea as a mission, but try to tie together who we are, what the missions are that we do, and why it's important, and why Korea should remain a duty station of choice. It took me 26 years to make it to Korea full time, but boy, am I glad I did. So I'm gonna start off with a video from the command. We'll see if we make it work, and then you're gonna listen to me talk, and it'll go downhill after the video. Oh, it worked.
My apologies. We're having just a little bit of audio issue that's getting recorded. So we're just going to pause for just a couple minutes for them to just work on technical glitch. Okay, so let's play some trivia. And people that, like General Brooks, you cannot answer. Okay, so 7,000 plus, right? Is that right? I thought it was 3,000 something. 7,000 something? Okay, yeah, wonderful. See, I learned something just talking to myself. Okay, anything else? Okay, so which airport in the world is the best airport in the world? Incheon. For how many years in a row? Over a decade. It's like 12 years in a row. Best airport in the world. Again, Steve Lee not making this stuff up. Go just Google it. It might even be 14, man. I lost track. Okay, we're back on track. So, Richard, I'm sorry, man, for the technical glitch. You got it, buddy. Thanks.
Okay. I think we can go back to slides. Aha. So we're going to talk a little bit about where we are in the world and why. And this is important. So on the why are we the linchpin and why Korea matters. This map says a lot about the globally integrated nature of what we do around the world as allies and partners. And we're obviously keying in on Northeast Asia, but if you look at the wider Pacific, Indo-Pacific, the economic center of gravity is shifting back over Asia. Most of the large economies, biggest booming economies, India. We've already heard this morning about, obviously the size of the Korean economy, size of the state of Indiana, 52 million people. It's much more than the miracle on the Han. It's the miracle of Korea at this point. And Japan, obviously, a strong economic powerhouse. And then China and Russia. One of them an economic powerhouse, one of them not so much. And what's the value proposition associated with both of those? I want to begin with the quote, not begin, but there's a quote on an epitaph on at the memorial about that our sons and daughters went to defend a country they never knew and a people they never met. But that's not the complete story anymore. It really needs to be amended to say, so that we may know each other well. There's a purpose behind what happened in 1950 and 1953, and I think we're missing the point of the alliance with Korea and the United States and the alliance system, and the things we have done to set up the free and open Indo-Pacific and the world order that exists coming out of World War II, and that must continue to exist because it benefits literally billions at this point. Historically, it mattered, and we're just not understanding the importance of what happened and what continues to happen as the alliance evolves over the course of time. The linchpin is that it is of strategic importance. If you look at the terrain of the Indo-Pacific, the financial flows, the information flows, the traditional trade that crosses the water and goes through the air, the science and technology and research that drives the 21st century economy starts and ends with our close alliance partners. And it matters because we're the liberal democracies with the free and open markets that drove all that change, that enabled economies in Southeast Asia to rise after the economies of Northeast Asia rose. So just keeping that in mind is critically important. The other thing is if you draw a circle around the edge of China, including the Uyghurs, suppressed population, and you go around and you come through Japan and you go down through Australia and you make that circle, in about 20 years, more people are going to live in that circle than live outside of it. So economics, populations, trade, flows, rising militaries, soon to be 7 of the largest 10. Most of the nuclear powers in that circle. It's a changed Indo-Pacific. And America is an Indo-Pacific nation, has been since the late 1700s when we first started trade with what we refer to as the Near East from the European perspective, but maybe it's America's Near West. If we go to the next slide here real quick. Oh, and on the bottom, let me mention the bottom real quick. The bottom represents what KJU and his cronies have been up to in 2021. And I'm being a little hyperbole, but there was a fair amount of stability, a little military action, and some diplomacy as we ended 2021. It wasn't great. Some of the diplomatic actions that started, like re-enabling the phones between Seoul and Pyongyang, got broken pretty quickly. But he was still adhering to the no nuclear tests, and he was still adhering to the no missile tests. We'll compare that to the end of what we see in 2022. The Republic of Korea is an ever-changing, in-motion society and government. And living there is absolutely fascinating from a cultural perspective and from a diplomatic perspective and from a political perspective. You've got to pay attention to the domestic politics in Korea and understand that the left and right limits don't mean that the left are bad and doesn't mean the right is perfect. It's just like every other human system that's ever been set up since the dawn of time. But what's happened over the course of the last 70 years, the miracle on the Han, which I would call the miracle on the Han Plus, because it's not about Seoul anymore. It's about the whole nation. When you drive north, south, east, west, the metropolises that are growing up and the industry that grows up with them is amazing. So if you look at Pyeongtaek, my estimation is that in 15 years, you won't be able to see rice paddies between the edge of the base and Pyeongtaek City, because the road networks and the transportation networks that are going in to support Camp Humphreys are also bringing industry down to Pyeongtaek. It's the natural way of doing business. Where do the roads go? Same way that Amazon and Google figure out how to put their warehouses. Their foreign policy and their military policy are aligning. So foreign policy there's a new South policy and a new North policy that's looking to economic advantage and integration in the wider Indo-Pacific, which is a little different. Japan tends to be a little inward-looking. Korean businesses are looking outward. And they're looking outward in different ways. So if you look at the THAAD golf course problems that plagued the relationship between the United States, the Chinese Communist Party, and Seoul back in the 2017 timeframe. That year, about 1,000 Korean businesses decided they were going to up and leave after the sanctions were put on them. Most of them moved to Southeast Asia. Great local population base, free markets, they're open for change down there. So things right-size themselves over time. You also see that they've embraced the free and open Indo-Pacific, just like all of the other United States allies and partners in the region and throughout the world, because they know the gravity of what's going to happen in that region over the next several years. The other thing I think we fail to recognize is that the Republic of Korea and the alliance between us changes generationally to meet new threats and challenges. We tend to be relatively myopic over what happens. But there were significant changes before Vietnam. There were significant changes after Vietnam. There were significant changes in the early 90s. And we're at the end of Strategic Alliance 2012, KATUSA, and the future CFC. We're coming up on the end of that, which means that it's time for the alliance, and you heard some of it today, and what the minister said, I think, resonates. What's next? How do we envision that? Based on the changing strategic and operational threat environment that crosses taking a look at Defense Reform 2.0 and said, it's not good enough. We're going to do Defense Initiative 4.0. I have yet to know what that looks like. But if you combine that with the fact that they're starting to look at what their Indo-Pacific strategy evolves to, combined with where they're at in terms of military change to meet the threat, we're beginning to look, once again, more like an even stronger alliance. I think that's something to carry forward as you talk about the missions on the peninsula and in the region. Oh, sorry, that was supposed to be an automatic display. And we remain steadfast in all the actions and responses to any provocations that happen from North Korea. See if I can. China. It's pretty clear that some of the changes that the international community expected out of China to be more democratic, more open market, are not coming true. That's clearly written in many of the strategies, including our own in the United States, how you deal with strategic competition associated with China. It's, we have to remember that they have a strategy. It's out in the open. It's translated. The strategy clearly says that they want to be a world power by 2049. The China dream. The problems with their last 23rd wayward province in Taiwan still resonate and reverb throughout the region every single day. The idea that they can use coercive diplomacy, and by they I mean the Chinese Communist Party, particularly under its current leader, creates some significant problems for the alliance system because they will move fast, alliance systems move slow. They would love to isolate and break that alliance system. They prefer to do it non-militarily, but we should be alarmed at the rate that they're growing their military to be expeditionary, lethal, and separate the United States from allies in the Indo-Pacific. And my sense is, talking with my friends and counterparts in Korea, is that there's an increasing awareness of that, and that's part of the dialogue of change and how you deal with that. It's tough. It's tough business to be able to have those discussions, and they have to happen at the pace and tempo of the alliance. And that's why, for example, just a simple example, Strategic Alliance 2012, which resulted in KATUSA and the future CFC and sort of the changes that you oversaw while you were there, when we changed it from a CORECOM ROK-JCS relationship to a CFC future CFC relationship. Keep that strong C2 intact. That resonates in that you got to have those discussions over time. And the Strategic Alliance 2012, as far as I can figure out, the earliest discussion those actually date back to the turn of the century. It's truly generational. And how that relates to the PRC and the physical or virtual terrain control they'd like to achieve over time, I think makes those discussions even more critical over the coming years. The other thing to remember with the PRC is, you know, they're not exactly friendly to human rights. You mentioned the Uyghurs. Population control, consistent monitoring, the GAP. That's not the values that exist in our alliance. And if you talk to our societies about it, I don't think that's how they want to live either. Shifting to Japan, another post-World War II success effort, and the importance of how Japan, the United States, and Korea come together and work a little better together each and every day, each and every month, each and every year, is another consistent trend. But again, it has to go at the pace of the alliances. I think if you can take a positive story out of a negative story, is the coercive diplomacy that exists coming out of the Chinese Communist Party and the regime in North Korea makes some of those discussions a little easier to have. That's, I guess, a fortunate byproduct of an unfortunate situation. Japan's well regarded internationally, just like the Republic of Korea, for its human rights, its ability to export security in a positive light, their journey into the Quad and what's becoming the Quad Plus, which includes some discussions with Seoul. But again, tough things to work. And to paraphrase my boss who was here this morning, those three alliance systems, those three plus the Australians, is a pretty good winning combination in the Indo-Pacific. I think we could all agree on that, hopefully. Russia. I tacitly refer to Russia as the spoiler. They're a not great power that desires to remain a great power on a single-legged economy, a military that has not done well in the Ukraine, and another country that we had hoped for, a democratic, more open market coming out of the Cold War, that we overestimated would happen. And they, too, would like to change the rules by which we play. We wouldn't have terms like gray zone warfare if it weren't for Russia starting that back in the early 2000s. Again, they've got some challenges with human rights. And they want to continue to show strength. And we're going to learn a lot over the coming months, I think, in the Ukraine, as they try to figure out how they work their conventional force to achieve some end state that is not their original end state. And we'll also learn a lot about strategic escalation as they perhaps continue to nuclear saber rattle. They are the only true country in the world that believes that we're going to have a conventional and nuclear doctrine that can be enabled. So we have to watch that closely, because the rest of our allies and partners and potential adversaries are going to watch that. And then going to the north, to DPRK, it's still a country that is really at full mobilization, but they're decaying at the rate that their conventional military can perform, because they haven't invested in new capabilities and their training's lower and lower each year. Obviously, they have invested in the asymmetric threats: missile systems, nuclear systems, cyber, SOF, that create significant challenges if the armistice were to break. And obviously, their first goal is to defend the regime, and then to defend the state. You got to keep that in mind as you figure out what's next with Korea, or North Korea. Everybody knows the human rights problems, the living conditions. Watching COVID spread rapidly through North Korea right now should be a surprise to nobody. The only thing that's a surprise to me is that it took this long. And then we're working hard, recognizing that the threat has changed, both from how we implement strategy in the alliance and also how we implement planning in the alliance. And like China, they're helping pull the alliance system together because they now threaten other allies and partners, including Japan and the United States, directly. And on the peninsula, we have a really unique, sorry, I should have pressed that again, organization of 3 commands. Staff's generally separated with multiple flag officers wearing multiple hats. Starting with UNC at the top, their job is to, established under UNCR 84, their job is now to defend and enforce the armistice, and then work with UN sending states should the need arise if armistice breaks. That includes there's 16 sending states that we count right now. It involves Department of Defense coordination, Department of State coordination, and up to the ambassador to the UN for annual reports. The middle part, CFC, where I work as the Alliance Plans Chief, is the Warfighting Command, as you saw in the video. Using combined delegated authority, the commander can use joint doctrine, direct training, and oversee exercises and the responsibility to make sure that should the armistice break, that we can go to change OPCON so U.S. and Korean forces come together under CFC to win that fight, to defend South Korea and win. It's unique. We have an alliance coordination system where all guidance comes through bilateral unified channels at the national authority level between the presidents, the secretaries, and the chairman. With the CFC commander, the person receiving that guidance to execute. And then the third command, USFK, has a responsibility in a U.S. unilateral lane to be ready to fight tonight and integrate into the CFC. They do critical missions in the rear area to make sure we can receive forces and echelon them forward for combat, as well as executing critical U.S. unilateral missions as required. For forward deterrence, our presence on the Pen matters. Everyone says, oh, you're leaving Seoul, you're leaving Yongsan. There's a reason to leave Yongsan. Yongsan is the hub and near Ministry of National Defense, but it's a horrible place to fight from. Not a great place for CFC to be. Pyeongtaek's a pretty good choice. It gets us out of some of the long-range artillery fire, gives us the ability to respond in a more rapid manner while not under duress. And it's not the only places we are. We're still all over the peninsula as a U.S. part of the alliance, doing very important missions every single day as we prepare to defend the Republic of Korea. Conventional deterrence is a hallmark of U.S. strategy, as I suspect you all know, both conventional and extended deterrence, that the U.S. gives that umbrella to our allies and partners. And we're seeing that witnessed in the Ukraine today, as extended deterrence is on the table, and there's active discussions about how NATO gets defended if required. The other thing to remember is it's not really just about deterrence. There's an assurance piece of that as well. We deter our adversaries, but we assure our allies. So doing that forward every single day matters. You can't do that from the continental United States. It just doesn't happen. You have to be tight with your allies, training with them every single day, looking them in the eye, having discussions and figuring out how you're going to solve real problems. That actually matters. As already mentioned, the cost sharing that the ROK government does is higher than all of our other allies. They're pulling their weight, is that what I would say. The other thing, there's a lot of talk about repositioning inside of the Indo-Pacific, and that maybe we're over-invested in Northeast Asia. I think it's not quite that way. We're invested in Northeast Asia for the right reasons. We're underinvested in other places in the Indo-Pacific that we're trying to remedy. And as the threat changes, deterring in multiple directions to multiple adversaries becomes an increasing challenge. This slide sort of just is a bit of a summary. Good things that are happening. We're coming out of our COVID stance and also our 2017-18 stance of sort of slowing down our exercise pace. There's a readiness part of that. So we're ramping up exercises, we're ramping up field training exercises, combined field training exercises. We're ready to respond to DPRK missile and nuclear tests across the alliance functions. And we will indeed, we do go together. And what that means, and I want to touch a little bit, so we talked a lot about the mission. Missions draw as a mission. The self-worth of the service members doing their job is like the most critical factor of what we do and why you go to Korea. The mission matters, period. But you already talked about Humphreys, the other garrisons that are being improved. Family quality of life is amazing in Korea. On post, off post. We share cultural heritage at this point after 70 years. My daughter's grown up almost her entire life somewhere in the Indo-Pacific. Most of her friends are Asian. Her friends lovingly refer to her as a reverse Twinkie. She's white on the outside and yellow on the inside. She listens to K-pop, does K-drama. Hey, guess what? My wife's lived there long enough in the Indo-Pacific. She does the same thing. Hangul. I am not learning Hangul. I'm a foreign language dud. And then touching upon the relationships, being able to sit with my deputy every single day and have detailed conversations, sometimes multiple times, because translating between two languages takes time. You have to take the time to make the alliance work. It matters, because these are hard. It's hard. So hearing you talk about KATUSAs and how you work together, really was just amazing. And the other thing I'll remind you all of is when you're in a close-knit, tight organization that works well together, losing a soldier, whether it's a KATUSA, somebody in CFC staff, ROK-U.S, it hurts. It really does hurt, because you are an ally and you are friends and you fight for each other. And that's also part of the alliance, and that's also part of being forward with your friends. So I take that very literally at this point. So I'm going to pause there, and hopefully you've got some questions and you can stump me.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, really appreciate Rich. Wonderful. Gave us a strategic overview of the entire environment in Korea, as well as in his personal experiences and why Korea is an assignment of choice for him. So any questions for Rich? Yes, okay. From one Rich to another.
Good afternoon, Rich Lenz. I'm the Hawaii chapter president of KDVA, and during the daytime, my job is the Joint Pacific Multinational Readiness Center, USERPAC's CTC, that's under development. And so, as a plans officer and a member of the CFC, thank you for your presentation. And my question is are you looking at increasing the number of combined exercises that the Republic of Korea does with the U.S. outside of the Korean Peninsula?
Yeah, actually, there is, I know Indo-PACOM's working that in detail on how you support more exercises off the peninsula. So simple example, RIMPAC, they sent their brand new big deck Murado, I believe one of their submarines. But yeah, there's definitely a push to and I think from the Korean side as well, that where else do we fit? Again, it's a slow discussion. I apologize for not being able to answer the details of where that's going, but yeah, that's definitely in the cards.
So not just increased exercise activity on the peninsula, but also in the region. Fantastic. Okay, please.
Thank you. I do have a question. You mentioned that there's this circle from China all the way to Australia. Can you elaborate what that would be?
Just using it as an example to say if you drew that circle, in about 20 years, more people will live inside that circle than outside of it. So it's the idea of population density. Not because birth rates are higher in China, but birth rates in Northeast Asia are low. The major economies in Northeast Asia have hit the what they call the death cliff, where there's more deaths per year than there are births per year. But if you look at the other parts of the region, the population rates are up, and if you're already starting with like China, it's at 1.3 billion, plus India, that circle means something. Population density usually, along with economic power, portends large-scale military investment, additional frictions over resource management, and then the potential that conflict increases.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm the former chairman of the KATUSA Veterans Association.
Sir.
So I'd like to actually ask you, what is the, you have any idea how to improve the strategic planning for KATUSA program for in the future? Because I got a lot of requests or sort of discussion with 8th Army Commander regarding they need much more KATUSAs compared to the previously they provided. At the moment, the KATUSA number of KATUSA has been decreased by year by year. So, do you have any strategic planning to discuss with this government and Korean government to increase the KATUSAs? Because I understand that the USFK they need much more KATUSA than before. Then. That's my question.
I can't answer that specifically, but what I'll offer is the demands placed on the conscription system in general, because we draw our KATUSAs off the conscription system, is going to be more and more challenging. So if you look at the defense reform initiatives inside of the ROK government, and mostly from the ROK, and specifically for the ROK Army, over the next couple of years, they're going to lose 120,000 troops from the formations because of the combination of conscription going to 18 months and the pool that the ROK government can actually draw from to create an army. So the priority's got to be to the ROK government and its warfighting demands, I would suspect. That means that they've got to be able to deal with moving from a 7-core capability now to, in 2025, having a 5-core capability. And I think everything else, where those conscripts go and where that expertise goes, sort of becomes a trickle-down effect. So that the thought that there's going to be a dramatic rise in KATUSAs, I think would be a bit of a challenge. I'm not saying it can't happen, but my estimate is it's hard because of all the priorities that pull the military in different directions. Is that a fair answer?
Okay, Rich, great. Thank you very much, Rich. Appreciate it. Okay, so that's a good segue. So our next organization is the KATUSA Veterans Association. So just as a reminder, hey, they're the organization that sponsored our wonderful reception before the Twilight Tattoo, in which the Secretary of the Army, the Honorable Christine Wormuth, attended. And so they're a strong partner and supporter of KDVA. I strongly believe in what KATUSAs mean for both American and Korean societies. Because of what they did in 8th Army in Korea, then they grow up and they go out into different sectors of both the Korean and American societies. So they do tremendous work for both, and we're really looking forward to hearing all the progress and great work that the KATUSA Veterans Association is doing. So this is Mr. Yang Ji-young. So please, let's welcome him.
Hello. I'm Ji-young Yang. and I'm a general manager at the KATUSA Veterans Association. If you are wondering, this is a KATUSA section here today, and I'm glad that to be here today, by the way, and actually I'm glad to have the opportunity to introduce the KATUSA program as well as the KATUSA Veterans Association to you. So, as you may know, KATUSA stands for Korean Augmentation to the United States Army. The KATUSA program was initiated on August 15, 1950, through an informal agreement between the President of the Republic of Korea, Seungman Lee, and the Commander-in-Chief of United Nations Command and General of the Army, Douglas A. MacArthur. On 15 August, the very first KATUSAs were assigned to an U.S. Army unit, augmenting the U.S. forces, and under the command of the U.S. Army commanders. And with that, the KATUSA Veterans Association, also known as the KVA, is an organization that consists of people who have served as a Korean augmentation to the United States Army soldiers. And the KVA initially was formed in 2007, legally incorporated as a non-profit organization in 2013, and recognized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Korea. Now, the KVA has reserve branches across the Republic of Korea and overseas. As of 2022, the total estimated number of the KATUSAs is around 300,000, including Korean War KATUSA veterans. And there are around 10,000 regular members who are officially registered in KVA. And the key role of the KVA is to support the ROK-U.S. relationship and strengthen the alliance between the two by providing cultural exchanges program and promoting the well-being of the Korean War and defense veterans and KATUSA veterans. Also, the KVA supports the welfare of active duty KATUSA soldiers as well as service members of the United States Forces Korea. As civil diplomats, KVA members will continuously support the U.S. service members and foreign service members, especially from countries that served in the Korean War as a member of United Nations forces. And we have many executives in the KVA, and we have the, actually here, we have the chairman, Mr. Kim Hae-sung. Could you please stand up? And ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause, please. Sorry about that. Can't really check the sound here. Is it okay now? And then we also have Mr. Kim Jong-uk, Emeritus Chairman, and also board member of the KDVA and the Korea-U.S. Alliance Foundation. Please stand up. Thank you. We have ongoing activities including the KATUSA Award Ceremony and Dinner, and Memorial Ceremony of the Korean War Fallen Soldiers, Change of a Command, Change of Responsibility Ceremony. There, actually, we present a plaque of appreciation to our service members for their exceptional service in Korea. And we also support for Army Birthday Ball, support for KATUSA and U.S. Army Friendship Week, Manchu training, and we support and participation. We participate in between 2008 and 2015, and we plan to resume a program 2023 in Seoul. We support for KATUSA Training Academy KTA graduation ceremony as well. And the following are some of the recent events that the KVA was a part of. Here on the slide, you can see that this MOU ceremony with the KDVA was held on 1st December 2021, agreeing to work together to strengthen the bilateral alliance between the Republic of Korea and the United States. In the picture shown on the screen, the president of the KDVA, General Vincent Brooks, is standing in the center, and the chairman of the KVA, Mr. Kim Hae-sung, is standing next to him. And next slide. The Wall of Remembrance donation ceremony was held at the Korean War Memorial on April 15th, 2022. The KVA, together with the KDVA, donated $50,000 for the Wall of Remembrance in Washington, D.C. And this picture is from the 2022 Best KATUSA U.S. Soldier Award ceremony, which was held at Camp Casey on June 9th last month. Mr. Kim Bong-jae, Vice Chairman of the KVA, was inducted into the Second ID KATUSA Hall of Fame during the ceremony. And the photo here is from the United States Army 247th Birthday Ball, where KVA leadership, including the chairman, emeritus chairman, and vice chairman, attended. Lastly, the change of command ceremony of the 28th and 29th Republic Korea Army Support Group Commander was held on June 30th, 2022 at KATUSA Training Academy, Camp Humphreys. We also presented the outgoing commander a plaque of appreciation. And this was just a brief summary about the KATUSA Veterans Association. Please feel free to say hello to hello to us when you see us around. Thank you for your time, and 같이 갑시다.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so any questions or comments or shared experiences with KATUSAs? Please keep comments short and relevant to the topic. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I'm Kevin Miller, president of the KDVA Georgia chapter. Quick question. A lot of us Korea Defense veterans earlier had talked about our interactions with KATUSAs and how much you helped us with understanding. What was the reciprocity? How did we help you, or what did the KATUSA experience working with the U.S. military? What did a KATUSA gain in that same respect, or what do you feel in that respect?
Thank you for your question. That's actually a big question, bigger than, it sounds bigger than actually it is, because the relationships that we've been emphasizing actually over the period of time today, we have a great relationship between the U.S. and the ROK Army, and well, of course, KATUSA is the backbone of the alliance. Here, I think it's not about gaining what we need, or it's all about defending what we need to defend. So when it comes to that, when, of course, as we talked about relationship, if we have a good relationship and we work together well, then we will both have a great times working together in their positions. And KATUSAs, as well as just like earlier in the morning session, we've been sharing all of our stories, right? KATUSAs, they probably have all their stories as well, like I do too. We can mutually understand culture. Yes, starting from culture. Language is a bit different. So many of you probably, if you do not, I met a lot of American soldiers who were surprised because some KATUSAs were, maybe their English was not good enough. But through, by working together, they can actually enhance, maybe improve their English as well. And then they can actually mutually understand how they think. It's not just about language, it's about culture. Language is very heavily connected with the language, right? Korean as well, English as well. With that, so we share thoughts. And we basically okay, KATUSA start from private, and then they get promotions, sergeants. And by the time they're about to ETS, they miss you, They miss you a lot. So what happened to me? I've been contacting almost everyone. And then we actually met in Florida, in Virginia, it happens. And then one of them, I actually taught Korean language. Now he's married to a Korean woman. Yeah. So a lot of things happening, and then I can, sometimes I can see that people change, it's a life change. With that, I do not want to talk too much about how we can do, how to enhance the alliance, ROK-U.S. alliance, because we've been talking a lot. Here, maybe if you, by the way, if you have any questions about, any stories about KATUSA or them, feel free to ask them. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so remember this gentleman because in a couple of decades, he's going to be like one of these guys. And the reason I point that out is if you look at the resumes of the gentlemen that are sitting here in the KATUSA table, it is business, but also a love for the alliance. And so each member of the KATUSA senior leadership here has an experience that connects both the United States and Korea. And they'll tell you, it all started from their experience as KATUSAs. So again, one of these days, someone might be going to him for a job. Okay, so just keep him in mind, and we thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so to close out the first group of our workshop is the KDVA local chapters, and in December we started our first U.S. chapter in Hawaii. We did it with the kickoff ceremony. We did it concurrently with the Alliance Peace Conference there in Hawaii, and we did it specifically in Hawaii because not too many people know the importance of Hawaii in connecting South Korea and the United States. And oh, by the way, we were very fortunate to go and visit Indo-PACOM, and so it was a fantastic Alliance Peace Conference. And while we were there, we started the first chapter with Rich Lenz, and again, we're about to start the second one in Atlanta for the Georgia chapter, and that's going to be led by Kevin Miller. So Rich Lenz and Kevin Miller will talk about our local chapters in the United States. So welcome, please.
Thank you, Steve. Kevin's got the clicker. All right, thank you for that introduction, Steve. General Brooks, General Jung, first off, thank you for the opportunity to be a local chapter president. Before it was, it was one of those overseas assignments, Germany, Italy, Korea, so I was trying to go. Didn't know that I would meet a young lady that would forever change my life. But it was the best decision I made was getting married to her. That was back in '98 that we met. I didn't actually go to Korea until 2001. From 2001 to 2004, I was up at Camp Casey in Dongducheon. Actually, back then it was called Tongducheon, TDC, instead of DDC. But with the correction of the translation, we got it right, and now it's Dongducheon. I was a company commander there with the Manchus in General Brooks's old battalion. In fact, we still used your tax op. It hadn't been updated since you were there in the 90s, sir. I left there, came back CONUS, did a rotation in Afghanistan, and then in 2009, I joined 2nd Infantry Division, second to none, down at Uijeongbu at Camp Red Cloud for a year, and then I decided I wanted to go back and support the U.S. Army in our war efforts, and once again I was rotated over to Afghanistan. And then I came back to Korea in 2012. And in 2012, 2013 time period, I was with 2-9 again. I was blessed to be the S3 for 2-9 Infantry. And that Manchu Miles, I did a couple of those. I did my 7th and 8th Manchu Mile during that time period. And that's the reason why my knees are shot. So but it was fun times. We also, while I was there, for those that have been at the USFK CFC UNC headquarters, you've seen the picture of the tactical vehicle, the American vehicle I believe it was a Bradley, doing a river crossing using a Korean engineer company's rafting equipment. That was us in 2-9 at that time, and my battalion commander, now Colonel Creamer, he's the Deputy J5 over in Korea for USFK. He made sure that we got plenty of good pictures and passed it around, and it got blown up, and it's probably still in some of those headquarters. We also took, and I asked sir about conducting training off the peninsula. In 2013, we went to Cobra Gold, and we brought our KATUSAs with us. And our KATUSAs, 3 of them were team leaders at that time. And that really shocked the Royal Thai Army. They were like, so they're Koreans? And we're like, yes. But they're team leaders in your squad. And we're like, yes. And actually, it was 2 team leaders. And one was so talented as a young man that he was made the squad leader as we were going through for a month time period as we were cycling through the personnel system to get a new staff sergeant in. And so it just blew their mind that we would entrust the KATUSAs that much. But that just goes to show you the strength of these individuals, that in their limited time, they developed their leadership skills in their second language, that they were able to lead soldiers from another country in their infantry combat skills. 2014, I came to the awareness of Colonel Lee, and he pulled me up to USFK. And for those that are with Indo-PACOM, I helped General Scaparrotti create the dirty word called Protect and Defend. I was his ghostwriter as he developed that package to help communicate to the DC the criticality of having U.S. forces during a crisis. From there, I stuck around, went over to the SJS section for a year, and inside of the USFK staff, I became a pariah because I was the one that helped them integrate the task management tool, or TMT, process that none of the staff wanted to ever answer. From there, my reward for good work was to become a member of the regular staff to answer TMTs. And so I went over to the 35. I was a ground planner, and this morning I was blessed to see Colonel Chang, who was my right-hand counterpart. We literally worked desk side to desk side, and all day we would argue and discuss the best way to do things. And then after 1800, we'd get up, we'd go get some samgyeopsal, have some soju and maekju, and we would continue those arguments well into the night. And next morning, get up and do the same thing. So this truly has been a reunion for me because I've been able to see so many individuals like that. Did that for a couple of years, and then my last year in Korea, I moved over to the Global Force Manager. Thought that was an easy position until I heard General Brooks say, "Chief, 3 months ago I asked for a historian team. What does it take to get a historian team?" And I'd only been in the position for a week, and I was like, man, I'm sure glad I'm not responsible for that. They got General Brooks upset. Went back from my notes from the transition the week prior, and I saw on there, historian team. Request from Indo-PACOM, follow up. And I was like, oh no. I need to get off of General Brooks' radar ASAP. And it only, I think, took us another 3 months to get them coordinated, sir. So, and that was it for me. And so that was my 11 years in Korea. I kind of did my own working return to Korea because I returned there three times. I served in Dongducheon, I served in Uijeonbu, I served in Seoul, and lastly, I served my last year in Pyeongtaek. And so that shows you my commitment, my desire to help to continue to perpetuate the Korean-U.S. alliance. And there's actually even more. On my wife's side, my father-in-law, he was a KATUSA with the 1st Cavalry Division. And right next to my pictures of me in uniform at our house, you'll see pictures of my father-in-law in his 1st Cavalry Division MP uniform. We were very proud of him for that. And his youngest brother was also a member of the Tiger Brigade. And he served with the U.S. forces inside of his Korean brigade in Vietnam for a year. And so the Korean-U.S. alliance goes deep inside of my family. And so that's a little bit about me, and I hope I didn't put too many people to sleep. But that's the reason why when Steve asked if you know anyone to do the job of being a Hawaii chapter president, because we're looking to start chapter presidencies, first thing I did was go ask a couple of colonels I knew that retired from Korea. And they said, hey, Rich, I got a lot of things going on, sorry. And on the third gentleman I asked, he goes, Rich, he's asking you. And I'm like, what? No, you need to be a colonel to be a chapter president. He goes, no, you don't. You just have to be, in it for the Korea-U.S. alliance. He goes, Rich, I don't know anybody else that has done 11 years in Korea. You should tell Steve that you're willing to do this. And I was like, oh, light bulb. It hadn't even occurred to me that I could be a chapter president, to tell you the truth. I was like, I had my successful career. I got out. I was like, I thought I was too junior. But no, it just takes passion for the alliance. Okay, Kevin, can we go to the next slide? So, as Steve alluded, we had a kickoff event back in December, and you can see on there that we had a ROK-U.S. Peace Conference. It was a great conference. We had a great discussion about the recovering of remains, the importance of Hawaii and the Indo-Pacific command structure in supporting the ROK-U.S. alliance. From there, I tried to reach out to other organizations. One of the things is that Kevin has experience with the nonprofits and networking. I had zero. I'm a member of several organizations, VFW, American Legion, etc. I paid my lifetime dues, and I've never showed up to a meeting. So so therefore, what did I started doing? I started reaching out to folks. I reached out to Mr. Don Kim. He's a KDVA member, but he's also a membership with KATUSA. I've reached out to the Korean American Foundations in Hawaii. I've recently reached out to the Hawaii Korean Chamber of Commerce. And most importantly, I reached out to the Korean War Veterans Association, Chapter 1 in Hawaii. These are a great group of gentlemen. Ladies, they talk very powerfully about their father, but one of the most passionate speakers for the Korean-U.S. alliance is Mr. Schaefer, their president. And while he's in his 90s, his speeches are short. They're like 1:15, but you want to get up and start chanting USA, ROK. He is very passionate in the short time that he gets up there and talks. And so, unfortunately, because of COVID and the restrictions that were going on in Hawaii, for the first couple of months, I was not able to see them because, once again, they're in the elderly, and so they were being advised not to get out much. I finally was able to make contact with them, and since December, I've been able to participate with them in a couple of ceremonies. One, they had similar to the ceremony that we attended yesterday at the National Cemetery in the Pacific, the Punchbowl. We had a dedication stone made for the Korean War veterans. And that is when I was the MPVA, through the representations at the Korean consulate in Hawaii, got me in contact with them. They invited me out there. And then I got out there to meet them. And it was a nice ceremony. It was great to meet the KDVA members. From there, they had invited me to a lunch with them. And I had a chance to get to meet some of these individuals. There's individuals that have had distinguished careers. There's a couple of retired generals that started off, they're talking about what it was like to be a lieutenant in Korea. There was also a gentleman that was a Filipino scout during World War II, fought the Japanese, and then joined the American Army afterwards, and then served in Korea. So it was great getting to meet those guys. And then they told me that on June 25th, the picture in the middle, that they do a annual Korean War commemoration at the Punchbowl once again. And so we attended, and because of the timing this year, and because the ROK-U.S. Marsada was in port because of the Rim of the Pacific or RIMPAC training event, their sailors came out, and the young Korean American kids were able to provide wreaths or leis for the service members, and the different organizations, nonprofit organizations, were able to lay wreaths to honor the sacrifice by the Korean War veterans. In addition, the ROK Navy invited us to come aboard their flat top, and they threw a heck of a reception on there. Their admiral went all out. I will say one thing, that I too enjoy K-drama, but I enjoy my K-pop in small doses, and after an hour of K-pop, I was on a sugar high. And then later that weekend, they also opened up the ship for everyone. And then, and I had mentioned the fact that I had lunch with the Filipino scout. That is the picture in the bottom left. And so those are how we have gotten after the honoring the Korean War veterans. As for the advocating, the educating, we had the peace conference, and as for recognizing and supporting those current members, we've had luncheons for the component Korea desk officers, so that we can try to reach out and increase the information out there about the ROK-U.S. Alliance and how KDVA is active. And so that's a little bit about what we've done in the Hawaii chapter over the last 6 months. This time I'd like to hand it over to Kevin to talk about the ramping up of Georgia.
Thanks, Rich. Let's see, he gets to talk about all the things he's done, which is some amazing work they put together over in Hawaii. I get to tell you what is coming. As we mentioned earlier briefly, that we're going to be launching the first KONUS chapter for KDVA here in Georgia, or excuse me, I'm not at home, there in Georgia in October. One of the things, and I believe Steve asked me earlier during my presentation on my time in Korea, was why Georgia, and what makes it stand out a little bit to make it right to have this kind of a chapter started. As the graphic shows, Georgia does have the third largest Korean American population, and we also have 750,000 veterans. Because of our military bases and the corporate lifestyles and everything, we get a lot of veterans that move in there. So it's really an area that is prime to reach Korea defense veterans. We have military bases that cover all the services located within the state of Georgia, and many, many veterans organizations, which, as Rich was mentioning, partnerships, and I know a key word that we're using here is relationships, which is true for any endeavor. The working with and partnering with the other organizations that are already in that battle space is only going to allow us to expand the KDVA mission and what we're doing. A number of things we also have is many international corporations now have their headquarters in Georgia. We are #1 in the state for Korean investment, which has brought Hyundai, SK, we have ports, we have the new Hyundai EV factory. What that's done was brought in a lot of, with the programs of mandatory service, we have a lot of ROK veterans that are living within the state of Georgia that have some amazing organizations that already meet. So that's really good opportunity to get in and get those. And as I mentioned here, it's a large number of educational institutions with international study programs, from Georgia Tech to UGA. There's a lot of the educational opportunities there that people are either coming in to study from abroad or they're doing international relations. So there's a lot of dialogue and a lot with the Korean community that's already based in Georgia. As we talked about in Rich's presentation and mine, is we're just looking down at why chapters and why are we looking at expanding KDVA into a chapter area of the ability to kind of target areas. And one of the things that we want to look at is the chapters are really the boots on the ground for the KDVA. I mean, we need to get down there and reach the veterans at a very much a local effort. And that is going to give us a chance to promote the KDVA mission and vision. But more importantly, it's going to give you that chance to talk and network with other veterans that are in your area. I'm sure there's veterans throughout the United States that couldn't make it to this reunion. This is going to give us an opportunity, and correct for now, Hawaii and Georgia, to have those local opportunities to get together. And the fellowship and camaraderie with other Korea defense veterans. I think one of the most important things is, I know when I meet somebody who served in Korea, first off, being a guy, now UJSA guys always had us beat, but being a Greaves guy, I was always like, where'd you serve? Everybody wanted to be in the worst spot or the furthest north, so you always have that conversation topic. And the next thing was either somebody would have a mech juice story, soju story, or a ramen story, or a K-bar story that would start that. My wife and I were at a Korean restaurant probably about 2-3 weeks ago, and a guy heard me talking about our revisit trip, and we probably had a 15-minute conversation on just soju and ramen and everything else. So he had been stationed there, I think, for 2 years. So it was a great opportunity to start meeting new people and kind of expand on that with the local chapters. And I guess we could look at this one again, but there we go. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, so the local chapters allows us to reach out to the local community, engage with them. And as I've spoken about, reached out to the Honolulu Korean Chamber of Commerce, and the reason for doing that is they sponsored the annual Korean Festival. And so that it's a way of us working together to promote our organizations together, so that we can expand our reach and get out there the fact that there is KDVA to support. Also, it allows a networking opportunity. So one of the things, while Georgia has the total numbers, as a population percentage, Koreans in Hawaii at 2%, there's more, that's the greatest population density in one state in Hawaii. So, you know, what we lack in size, we make up in fight. But we also have a very large community of veterans on the Hawaiian Islands. It's a very patriotic state. And so it's, you know, I run into at least once a week old friends that I've made in my 11 years in Korea. And so it's a way for us to get together, to reminisce about our time in Korea, and to also, you know, talk up the ROK-U.S. alliance.
And I think to kind of piggyback on that, it's too, is something in this, the word engagement. Anytime you have an organization that is based on whether it be veterans memberships or promoting the ROK-U.S. alliance, it's all about engagement. And that goes with participation. As we're working in these particular areas, Rich and myself are both attending and participating in other events that are veteran specific or international relations specific in those regions, because that is where we're going to meet people. If we're participating in their events, they're going to come to our events whenever we host them. That reciprocity is any way to grow an organization. And one of the big things with, you know, obviously Rich's family is very ingrained into the Korean culture, and Atlanta has a very huge Korean culture mechanism that they host a lot of events, and getting them involved to help, I guess, build the chapter is going to bring that cultural aspect in there, because in addition to, you know, the educational and the veterans, we want to make sure that people are learning something about the culture, whether it be something they didn't know or what we're talking about before about picking up on memories of when they served over there, from the hanboks to, you know, the Korean food. So engaging the cultural area, I think, is going to be vital. And just on this one, the organizing, the local chapter, we are the alliance. You heard that? Well, this is very much true with our members here, our members who are watching the video feed, and the many who have signed up on Facebook but have not necessarily signed up as members right now. We are the alliance, and we all need to work to make this successful.
Yes, yes, and so, we're looking to expand into other areas, and then if you think that you have the time, first off, if you don't think you have the time, I still have a full-time job. I still volunteer as a Cub Scout leader with my kids, and I help out with my church community, and I'm still making time also for the KDVA to reach out and promote the Alliance. And so if you think you have that time available, and if you have the passion for the Korean-U.S. Alliance, and you want opportunities to meet with fellow veterans, this is something that we would definitely would like you to reach out. And if you're asking the bandwidth, how much time does it take? I would say that I'm trying to, because I'm starting it up, I should be at 5 hours a week. Steve, put your fingers in your ear. I'm probably only doing 2 hours a week at this time, which the more time that you dedicate to it, the faster growth will happen. And so that, and one of the great things, Steve and General Brooks are providing some resourcing, they're providing some money to help grow, and as I prove that I'm responsible with that money and that I'm growing the organization, they're like, well, as you grow, we'll grow, your resources will grow with you. And they're providing that executive level leadership that you need so that you're steering the right way. Such things as, Rich, this is great that you're reaching out to all these organizations. Before you do anything with them, before you agree to put our name onto something, talk to us first. And so otherwise, they've encouraged, they've provided points of contacts from their Rolodex of folks that they have on who to contact to help reach out, such as, I haven't mentioned Dr. James Minich at the Asia Pacific Strategic Studies Center, getting me in contact with him to look at how we can support him as he supports the Alliance in the education realm.
And I think Rich touched on something, he mentioned the word passion. I would say passion and initiative are the two key things you need to bring to the table. So for those watching remotely and those in attendance today, if you're driving home or you're flying home and you see that and you have an area that you think that's going to be in our growth area that we're looking into, there's an email at the bottom of there that we encourage you to reach out and just email your interest. There is a plan of a rollout, so it won't be tomorrow that you're cut loose. But the idea is we're looking just for people to want to take that initiative and move forward. And to mention something just about that we did in Atlanta recently, General Brooks was down to speak at an event by the Korea Society. That was a great opportunity for us to see an organization where he was going to be sitting on a panel and discussing about the national defense and the ROK-U.S. alliance. And it was great that we probably had about 200 people in there, probably a little bit more, that were fascinated with this subject and really wanted to learn more, from people who are veterans or scholars in international relations to people that are moving their corporations or shifting some of their resources globally to know what that national defense aspect of the Indo-Pacific region is. So there's a lot that KDVA can bring to the table, more so than the Veterans Network and other things. It's going to be a resource for a lot of corporations and other people out there. So if you feel that this is something that you would like to step up to the plate, I know Steve would appreciate an email, and it will be something that we can move forward with.
Okay, before we wrap up and we go to questions, I do want to give a shout out to another fellow Hawaii chapter member that is here today, Colonel Retired Harold Kwan. Thanks for coming all the way across the Pacific to be with us here at the reunion.
Okay, so questions about their life experiences in Korea or about local chapters? Yes, please.
Thanks again, A lot of questions today. I have to be honest, when I first discovered this organization, it just seemed like an officers club to me, I have to be totally honest with you. But the more I've kind of, experienced, I've understood there's a lot more to it than that, and that you all actually give a damn about us, and that makes me feel a lot better. As far as membership is concerned, getting the word out to folks that this is not just an officers club, I think is a big part of it. But also, other veterans that might not be full-fledged KDVA, for example, Team Spirit vets and stuff like that. Have you considered allowing Team Spirit veterans and other folks who've defended Korea? For example, I was stationed there for a year, then I came back from Fort Lewis, and we did a great deployment there. So I'm just wondering, have you considered, other ways of expanding the membership?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good idea, and we consider any organization that have mutual supporting missions, and so that's something that we'll definitely take a look at. And so, again, all of y'all, the reason, again, this is beautiful, because all of y'all are part of the organization. You have any ideas just like that, please let us know and we'll dig into it. But definitely, we would love to do reciprocal memberships. We really would. So look forward to working on something like that.
And Steve, if I could just jump in, just to piggyback on there, the thing I learned when I discovered about KDVA is the criteria is no matter who you were, what you served, what service you served in, what capacity, what job, what uniform you wore, your contribution to the ROK-U.S. Alliance on Peninsula is what gets you in the door. Rank has nothing to do with it, and different jobs or services. So we want everyone to be a membership, enlisted, probably even warrant officers. But we can get enlisted and officers alike to be a member of the KDVA. Second?
So we're taking warrants too?
Thursdays.
Recently, depends on what your definition of recently, Sergeant Major Payton has been added to the board. Yesterday we talked about adding diversity to the board, and that was part of a deliberate decision made by the leadership team to reach out to the enlisted by adding Sergeant Major to the board, so that we do not forget the majority of our veterans, which are enlisted soldiers. And I'm just joking about the warrants.
No, he's not. Okay. So, okay, wonderful. So thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it. So the reason why we wanted to bring this topic forward was, again, and this is wonderful, we love the feedback. Yeah, if you had a perception that this was about officers, well, thank you for sharing that. And because we've heard that over the years, all right? And so we're obviously taking more steps to try to improve upon that perception. Local chapters, again, what our two local chapter presidents said is absolutely true. Quite honestly, I'm the guy that runs day-to-day operations. The board has told me we don't care about rank when it comes to running chapters. We care about people who have a passion for the Alliance and who have the bandwidth, who have the capability. Okay? So please get the word out, and if you're interested and you've got those two criteria, please let me know. One final thing before we go to break. So what is this thing, this virtual common interest groups? So we recognize in today's modern world, not everything is going to be centered on local chapters. Okay, so we try to start a initiative last year where we, on the virtual realm, have common interest groups. Okay, so if you have an interest like, hey, I served in OSAN, let's have a common interest group about OSAN. Okay, and so one of the things that's wonderful about our new membership portal is that it supports common interest groups. So if you're interested in creating one, just go into a membership portal. It just, we just updated it, go in there and just create one. And you'll be amazed at how many people will probably want to be sharing. Hey, I want to do a kimchi common interest group because I love making kimchi at home, looking for ideas. Hey, I want to start a common interest group because I want to help other veterans, whatever topic that might be. Hey, I'm about to have a parent that goes into assisted living. Does anybody have any expertise in that they would love to share? Members helping members, common interest group. So please, the ideas are limitless, so please go into our new membership portal and do that. Okay, so let's take a break. Again, breaks are intended to be long so you can spend time to talk to each other and connect, and we'll be back here at 3:30. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.